Hey, welcome back to my channel, Running Wild. And as you can see today, Pacer, the higher running positivity coach, and my beloved niece, is going to help me start off this video. And as promised, I'm going to try to answer some of your questions, although I think I might only get through one or two now because I promised this one that I would take her outside for a hike. And obviously, she is ready to go. So I'll just answer one question right now. We'll see. Oh, Pacer. Okay, this is an easy one. So I actually had a few people ask me about my favorite trails and places to run. And I've actually done some videos on this that I'll put in the description. And basically, favorite place to run in the entire world has been the San Juan Mountains right here in Colorado. It is about like a 6+ hour drive, depending on what town in the San Juans I start from, but the San Juan Mountains is my heaven on earth. And some of my favorite trails there would be going up to Island Lake, from Silverton, or the Wasatch Trail and Telluride. There's so, those are a couple, but honestly, there's just so many, endless, amazing trails in that area, and it's so stunning. But I also do like exploring all over the world. But for a different change, I filmed Moab in my last video a little bit, I guess 2 videos ago when you're watching this. Moab's a really cool place to run for a desert. Sedona was cool when I got the chance to run there. I always feel like I ran in Sedona when I wasn't in the best running shape or not running very far. And I also love the collegiate peaks or the Wholesale Watch range. So basically from Salida to Leadville, you might know Nolan's 14. And I've told Sage this before, but last summer we started exploring the Nolan's 14 route, and that was some of the most fun I've had. Yeah, it was a blast doing that with him. And those mountains to me, even though I think the San Juans are prettier and heaven on earth, those feel like my home mountains. And maybe I'll make them home sometime this year, we'll see. So I think that answers that question. Are you gonna let me get through one more? Are you gonna let me get through one more question? Will you help me pick? Okay, I have a question from Chris. And Chris, I just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you. I won't read the entire comment out, but what you're doing is, I'm sure, really meaningful right now. And I know it's tough, but you'll get through it, and you'll be thankful that you took the time to do this for somebody you loved. But anyway, the question, I've moved to mostly road and gravel biking right now, and suggestions on keeping in trail shape while cycling. So it sounds to me like you're not actually injured. You did this for another very good reason. So I'm going to keep that in mind while I'm answering this. So first part about staying in shape, I just think getting your heart rate up a little bit on a bike is definitely going to help. And we do have a free cycling cross-training plan on, still switching the websites over, but maybe by this video comes out, it'll be on higherrunning.com. If you look under the free plans, you'll see the cycling cross-training plan. So that's a good way to still get in some workouts on the bike. The big thing you have to remember with cycling compared to running that can be good, but it also might not be if you're only cycling, is that it's very low impact force. So that's why it can be great if you're injured, but if you're not injured, runners, we really need our bodies to be able to handle a significant amount of stress. So if you can cycle and still do some at-home workouts, I kind of think about that, like it's not a bad time to add in some jump roping or maybe some plyometrics. Start small, especially plyometrics. Less is more at first, for sure. Just to get your body and bones used to staying used to like handling the stress of running. And then expanding on that a little bit if you have the time for at-home workouts, just doing some core work, especially focusing on hip and glute stuff, maybe lower abs and stuff like that, but especially like hips and glutes. That's always going to be really helpful for running, road running or trail running. So, you know, may as well work on that type of strength so when you get back into running, your body's gonna better be able to handle it. The last thing to keep in mind in situations like this, if you're cycling a lot, you can get really fit aerobically. So your heart's in really good shape, but your legs might not be in great shape for running. And so when you get back into running, you have to be careful with that because your heart's gonna be might be telling you like, hey, I'm in good shape, I can do a lot right now. But you have to remember your legs aren't as in great shape right now, so you kind of have to balance that out when you're building back up. So just something to think about, and I will continue answering these questions throughout the week. Right now it is time to take Pacer for a hike. Or go for a hike. Is it Pacer time? Is it Pacer time? She knows that Pacer time means hiking or running. Are you gonna pull me uphill? You're gonna pull me uphill, right? All right, I will continue these questions throughout the week. Thank you so much for sending your questions into and all the wonderful comments. While I'm thinking of this, I just wanted to say, maybe, as you all know, like social media can be a hard place, but you know something I heard recently is to trust people to be good, and everyone who left a comment in the last video, like really, like just show that to me, like trust people to be good and they'll show up for you. And so hopefully I can hopefully I can keep showing up for you and in whatever way I can. So, all right, Pacer time, go. Okay. Okay, different day and no Pacer, which I know makes this video less exciting already, but I do have some pretty thoughtful questions, which hopefully the video will still be entertaining even without Pacer. So I guess start off with this question by Lucille, and she says, it would be nice to hear you explain how you built mental fortitude over the years. How do you stay mentally strong to keep pushing when you need to, as well to know when to stop to prevent possible injury? So there's a couple of parts to this question, but for the first part, how I built mental fortitude over the years, I want to start off by saying that a lot of it started from a very dark place. I was diagnosed with depression, probably had it since I was a kid. Had a lot of self-hate, and I've really been on the other end of everything I've said. But there's a quote that goes something like, sometimes you think you've been buried, but you've really been planted. And that's a choice I made to grow. And so with that, over the years, I spent a lot of time really going all in with working on my mind. I've read tons of different books, neuroplasticity books, sports psychology books, listened to all the podcasts I could on the subject, and I'll link some below. And I also took like a high performance mindset course by a sports psychologist, which helped me a lot. And a lot of things that work best for me are now in the all-in plans at higherrunning.com. So I took the learning route and devoured everything I could, but then it's of course realizing this is something that's important to me, and so I'm going to spend time working on it every single day. And sometimes I'm really not very good at it. I'm still growing. I still have so much growing to do. But while I realize that, there's also this sense of pride of knowing I worked hard to get where I'm at, and I'm happy because of that. But also part of what makes me happy is knowing that I still have room to grow, and to continue this practice, because really this mindset is going to be a lifelong practice for me. So, other parts of the question: how do you stay mentally strong and keep pushing, and also know when you need to stop? So for me, staying mentally strong, if you're talking specifically about a race, that comes easier because I practice it every single day, right? And I don't just practice it when I'm running, I'm practicing it throughout the day. As some of my athletes heard me say, if you get a flat tire, you need to stay positive, because if you can't handle staying positive when you get a flat tire, you're not going to be able to stay positive if something goes on during a race. So it's just this continual practice throughout the day. And I have, before the race even starts, I know what I'm going to tell myself in different situations. And I think having that conversation with yourself before the race helps a lot. So like if it's really a hard moment during a race, but I know my body is okay, like I already kind of have a few ideas of what to tell myself, or maybe what not to tell myself. Sometimes it's better for me just to say, stop thinking, just run. Or just focus on the view in front of you. So it's just having these tools beforehand so they're easier to come by during the race. And then knowing when to stop. For me, again, I had this conversation before the race where if I felt some of the things that troubled me with the training cycle was going wrong, then I asked myself before the race, and I normally frame it as, if I was talking to myself, or if I was talking to my best friend who was in the situation, or to a loved one in the situation, what would I tell them? And so I knew, having that discussion with myself before the race, what I would do if I wasn't in position to race to my full potential, and if I knew that I was hurting myself more than helping. And for me, like, it's so different depending on the race. Like I felt like I was in a really odd situation going into Black Canyon with is more motor patterns being off than anything else, and I'm not wanting to integrate those bad motor patterns more, and then taking like 5 steps back when I've worked so hard to get to a place where I sometimes feel really good running. This actually leads me to another question. Let me find it, because this is a really good question that I don't feel like I explained very well in the previous video. Okay, this one's from Jason. When you said your form fell apart, did you feel like if you continued, you would have gotten injured if you kept going? I possibly felt like that, but I'll continue with the question. I'm only asking because I feel like in the few 50K races I've done, I felt my form fall apart a bit between miles 20 and 22 miles. If it was a shorter race, like a 50K, would you just continue on at that point? Fatigue seems inevitable in such long distances. So I want to make sure I'm not causing damage to myself pushing through. Can you speak to the specifics of that? Okay, so this is, there's a very big distinction between just breaking down and then having your motor patterns and neuromuscular things falling apart. So he's right, during an ultra or even like a marathon, but especially during an ultra, there's gonna be a lot of form breakdown. And often at the end of these long ultras, you're running quite differently than you were at the beginning of the race, and that's because of muscle damage and your form breaking down. And that I can handle, well, depending on the severity. So if it's just a 50K and you feel your form starting to break down, that can be very normal and something you want to push through, again, depending on the severity. And if it's really just more of a muscular fatigue versus you feel like a lot of pain, like there again, like there's that like kind of like my legs feel beat up versus actually feel like an injury in a certain area. So like just kind of like knowing the difference between that muscle fatigue and injury. For me, it was neither. It was, again, more of a motor pattern, neuromuscular thing where I've been trying so hard to correct. I'm trying to think of how to explain this. But for me, it's, when that started to happen, I felt like my left leg just stopped working. And so it's more like I was just using that left leg to like almost just stop and pivot off of. I don't know if that's the right wording, but I didn't feel like I was actually using my left leg the way it was meant to. And so like it was that feeling like my legs were working differently. And so that's a neuromuscular motor pattern thing. And yeah, like because I started off feeling okay, that it was like partly like muscle fatigue too, but then really I didn't want to ingrain those bad muscle patterns that I've been trying so hard to get rid of. Hopefully I'm not confusing anybody when I say this. Let me think if I missed anything in that. Actually, I do have one thing to touch on. So fatigue, yeah, if it's just fatigue, I think it's okay to continue on. But I will say, I've been adding this into all my athletes' training plans after a race, is that after the race, like, yeah, you want to recover, but in that next week or two, do technique work. Because what happens a lot after ultras is like people get injured a couple weeks after, and it's because their form broke down and they don't take the time to make sure like their strides back to normal after the race, and so they're running with patterns they picked up at the end of an ultra. So little tip, the week or two or even 3 weeks after an ultra that like really beat you up, or even like a marathon or anything that like really beat you up, take some time to step back and do that technique and form work after. And that way, you know, you won't pick up like the ultra shuffle, or you won't have this weird thing with your stride. So just spending a little time on that after a race can go a long way. Okay, moving on. This next question is from Jack. He's asking about goal setting, and he says, as an elite runner, is it almost straightforward to know that a great outcome is to be able to win a race, or just to be able to run it faster than any other athletes? As someone who doesn't have much self-esteem, thank you for your honesty there, I can struggle with setting a goal for myself to achieve and end up comparing what I did to others in search for some sense of validation. If I set my sights too low, then I can belittle my wins, whereas if I set them too high, I tell myself I can never get there. There's a lot to unpack here. So I'll start off one by one with the parts of this question. So is it straightforward to know that a great outcome is to be able to win a race or just run it faster than other athletes? I would say no. I think it really depends on the race and how much heart you kind of put into it going into it. Like if the weird thing with Black Canyon for me is like I knew for a while that I wasn't even sure if I was going to do it. So it would have been different than going into like, let's say like a race like Hard Rock or UTMB or Western States, where I'd been dreaming of it and training had gone well and I really just put my heart, soul into everything. Like those are races, you know, I might have a goal just to finish. But with that said, I typically for everyone I coach and myself, we have A, B, and C goals. Sometimes you have that A plus goal that it could be really hard to reach, but it is possible. So, well, the A goal, the A plus, then the B goal and C goal, and then there's this if everything goes wrong goal, and that's always to try to keep a good mental attitude no matter the outcome. Because just going back to my last video, that's a great challenge in itself, to be able to stay positive even when all goes wrong, right? So that's a goal I always have for all my athletes going into every single race. But I really want to address other parts of this question, especially with self-esteem, because why don't you make that a goal right now to see if you can change your self-esteem before you even prioritize race goals? Because I know it's easy to think that your self-esteem about yourself can't change, but it can. But you have to start thinking of a better way to talk to yourself. And as I mentioned in the last question, that I often will take a step back and say, if I was talking to a loved one in my situation, how would I talk to them? And that could be a good step for you here. So start thinking about what ways can you have a better way of thinking about yourself. And why are you comparing yourself to others in the first place? Like, if you're signing up for a race, you're already doing so much better than if you were just sitting on a couch watching a TV and not signing up for the race to begin with. I know running is such an easy sport to compare yourself, but there's beauty in using others to help you reach your goals, and wanting to see success for other people and using them to help you while not necessarily comparing yourself. And I know that comparison's gonna slip in, but when it does, it's taking that step back and asking yourself, I don't need to compare myself to that person. I'm gonna compare myself to myself who made different decisions, less healthy decision, who didn't sign up for the race or get to the start line for the first place. You never need a race to validate yourself, right? Running isn't meant to validate you. Showing up, you can use that to validate yourself, or shooting for big goals. And actually, let me stop there. I would actually say a good little reminder for you to read it is The Man in the Arena. Go and read that, because I think that's such a great reminder that, you know, just putting yourself in the arena and going for it is beautiful in itself, and it's a worthy challenge. And if you don't meet your goals, at least you tried. That's so much better than not trying at all, right? And you're gonna surprise yourself if you do. Like, it might not happen when you want. It might not happen how you think it is, but if you set big goals for yourself and work for them, you're gonna get so much farther than if you didn't set those big goals for yourself. And again, like, if things don't work out, you got better and you know you tried, which is so much better than just not trying and selling yourself short at all. And this really applies to all aspects of your life. But Jack, like, do this work, do this mindset and mental training work, talk to yourself through it, find better thoughts. Like, you can do this. I know it's hard, but I promise you it's worth your time and you can do it. And don't be afraid to ask for help from, I don't know, a sports psychologist or maybe a friend who you admire. But you can do this, I promise. It's hard, but you can do it. Okay, this next question is from Jonathan. What are your favorite products from Rabbit? Looking to buy stuff from your wife, good man, but not sure where to start. So many choices. It really depends on her style. I love the new waffle gear. I like so much of their products. I wear like just their plain black tights all the time. I feel like, you know, that's pretty popular, is black tights right now. I love their jog-alongs. I love wearing sweatpants, especially on these cold winter days or when camping. And they're actually cute sweatpants, so I'd highly suggest the sweatpants. I love the racer tank top. And then the shorts I typically wear would be, I think, the Winners or the mountain climber. So if she's a trail runner, the mountain climber shorts are always good. But I don't know, it's hard to go wrong. A gift card can always be nice too. I'm typically somebody who likes to pick things out for myself. But I also get like wanting to give an actual like physical gift. But again, it's really hard to go wrong. And if she doesn't like it, then she can return it and pick something else out for herself anyway. But that's a really thoughtful question of you. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm sure your wife will really appreciate that. Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on utilizing an altitude mask when the area of running does not provide elevation for training? I don't have a lot of experience with an altitude mask. I've done a little bit of reading. So I just want to be clear, this is an altitude mask and not just like one of those breathing things that doesn't take away oxygen or anything. It just kind of makes it harder to breathe to build up lung capacity. So maybe it could be helpful, but if you don't want to wear an altitude mask, something I talked about again in like the new all-in plan is heat training versus altitude training. And heat training could be a really good alternative if you don't have access to higher altitudes. There's actually some similar benefits, and in some ways we're kind of seeing the evidence that heat training in some situations could be better, especially like if your goal race is at sea level or lower elevations, and heat training to get that little extra boost could be a really amazing alternative. But even if you are racing, let's say like you live at sea level, you're racing at 5,000 feet, heat training can still help you build that blood plasma volume. And yeah, so I think, you know, with an altitude mask, it could help a little bit. I also know it could be really annoying and inconvenient to use sometimes. So maybe explore heat training a little bit. There's a lot of information on it if you just do a Google search, although maybe there's some bad articles on it too. So watch your sources. Always question things to make sure that you're reading the best resources. But I don't know, just look into that. That's my suggestion. Just do a little bit of research on both the altitude mask and heat training and see the science behind it. Okay, I'm gonna answer 2 more questions, both from Beach All Day Guy, like the username. Recovery, do you use other forms of recovery, cold hot baths, massage, acupuncture, Epsom salt baths, etc.? Typically, I have a massage gun I'll use, and I do like. So I'll use that regularly, but otherwise my biggest things for recovery are always be sleep and nutrition. I don't think there's anything better than those 2 things. And I do like active recovery too. So mobility, just going for a walk, going for a bike ride, something that just gets the blood flowing to help with that recovery process, but not stressful on the body. I'm not saying the other things don't work, it's just not my preferred way of recovering, and it's not fun to me. If anything, it just sitting in the bath doing nothing actually just kind of stresses me out. I don't know why, like I can do other things without having something in front of me and just appreciate thinking, but I don't know, I just not a bath person. So yeah, biggest things for me, massage gun, but definitely most importantly sleeping as much as I can, and the nutrition. So the last question is about wildlife and what I do for safety. So around Boulder, a lot of people and the mountain lions and bears around here are very used to being around people, and they're either terrified of us or they just don't really care most of the time. And so around Boulder, I really don't need to bring anything with me except really a cell phone for safety, and honestly that's more for people than for wildlife. If I am in other remote areas or if I'm camping, then I'll up my game a little bit, so maybe different types of sprays, or if I'm sleeping in my tent, I will definitely sleep with like the wood cutting axe in the tent. And I also have what's it called, a Garmin InReach, but that's not really for wildlife, that's just more for smart mountain safety. But I think the biggest thing with wildlife is know how to react, so when you need to act big, when you shouldn't turn your back from an animal, when you should run, when you should shout, and things like that is really going to be more important than, or possibly more important than having different things on you. Because a lot of animals, like, especially like mountain lions, like they might look scary, but they're actually really skittish. Like there's that popular video of a mountain lion following a runner, but then as soon as like the runner like kind of like just kicked up a little bit of dirt, the mountain lion ran off. So having that in mind, just knowing what you should be doing with your body, or even with your voice, is really going to be important. Again, just knowing the area that you're going into and the animals that live there, always key, and looking that stuff up beforehand. And you can also just talk to the local forest rangers, whether you just call them up on the phone or you actually go into like the forest ranger station. They're super helpful and they want to help you and make sure you stay safe. So I always think that's a really great option. So I think that's probably enough questions for now. Thank you so much for following along, and I'll try to come up with something different for the next video. But again, thank you for watching, and until next time, keep running wild.